breaking on the wheel. This medieval torture method turned human bodies into living sculptures of agony. Victims were tied to a large wagon wheel while the executioners systematically shattered their limbs with an iron bar. The shattered bones were then woven through the wheel's spokes, creating a grotesque display that could take days to die. Some particularly cruel variations involved elevating the wheel so crowds could watch the victim's slow demise. Flaying alive. The ancient Persians perfected the art of skinning victims while keeping them conscious. Executioners used special curved knives to peel skin in large sheets, starting from the most sensitive areas. Assyrian kings would nail these human pelts to city gates as warnings. There are accounts of victims surviving long enough to see their own skin displayed before them. The Halifax Gibbet. This early decapitation device added psychological torture to physical punishment. The condemned had to pull the release mechanism themselves, a final act of forced compliance. When the crude blade occasionally jammed mid-execution, it created scenes of unimaginable horror as the partially decapitated victim struggled. The Brazen Bull. Ancient Greece's most infamous execution device transformed screams into musical entertainment. As victims roasted alive inside the bronze bull, their agonized shrieks were acoustically altered to resemble a bull's roar. The inventor became its first victim when the tyrant Phalaris tested its effectiveness. Scaphism. Persia's boats. Punishment was biological warfare before its time. Trapped between two canoes, victims were force-fed milk and honey until insects ate them alive from the inside out. The process could take weeks, with some victims begging for death as maggots burrowed into their flesh. The Blood Eagle. This Viking ritual turned traitors into macabre works of art. After carefully cutting along the spine, executioners would break the ribs outward to create wings before extracting the lungs. Historical accounts describe victims remaining conscious long enough to see their own organs draped over their broken bones. The Judas Cradle. The Spanish Inquisition's pyramid-shaped torture device redefined cruelty. Victims were slowly lowered onto its sharp point, with their own body weight doing the work. Some torturers would add weights or rocking motions to intensify the agony over hours or even days. The rat torture. This 16th-century punishment weaponized nature's cruelty. Starved rats in metal cages would chew through victims' abdomens when heated. The Dutch East India Company enhanced the torture by coating victims in spices to drive the rats into greater frenzy. Lingchi. China's death by 1,000 cuts was a carefully choreographed spectacle. Expert executioners made precise cuts to prolong consciousness for days. Families could pay for quicker deaths or to preserve skeletons for proper burial, turning torture into a morbid business transaction. The Spanish donkey. This wooden wedge torture combined physics with brutality. As weights pulled victims downward, the sharp ridge would first crush genitals before splitting the pelvis. Some executioners would jump on the weights to accelerate the gruesome process. The Pear of Anguish. Renaissance Europe's multi-purpose torture device targeted mouths, rectums, or vaginas. When expanded with its screw mechanism, it caused catastrophic internal damage. Many victims choked to death on their own blood as the metal petals tore through flesh. The Copper Bull. Carthage's variation on the Brazen Bull added boiling oil to the equation. Victims thrashed in agony as the oil cooked them alive, making the bull appear animated to spectators. The sizzling sounds and smells added sensory horror to the spectacle. The boat's punishment. This Persian variation on Scaphism used rising water levels for prolonged drowning. Victims alternated between drowning and gasping for air as tides changed, sometimes lasting for several days before finally succumbing. The Catherine Wheel. Medieval Europe's fiery version of breaking on the wheel added flames to the torture. Executioners would alternate between breaking bones with iron bars and rolling victims through burning straw, creating layers of torment. The Iron Maiden. Though historians debate its actual use, these spike-filled sarcophagi represent medieval terror. If real, victims would have been slowly impaled as the doors closed millimeter by agonizing millimeter. The lead sprinkler. Roman emperors used molten metal as a punishment tool. Nero famously poured boiling lead down Christians' throats while reciting poetry, combining physical and psychological torture. The saw torture. Suspended upside down, victims experienced blood rushing to their heads as executioners sawed them in half. This positioning kept them conscious through most of the gruesome process. The bamboo torture. East Asia's slow-growing execution method played the long game. Bamboo shoots trained to grow through victims' bodies created days or weeks of anticipation before the final piercing. The Judas Chair. Spanish inquisitors heated this pyramid seat until it glowed red. Victims were lowered onto it naked, with their screams serving as warnings to others considering heresy. The Heretic's Fork. This simple but effective device prevented all movement. Placed under the chin and sternum, any attempt to relax would drive the spikes deeper into flesh. The Head Crusher. Starting with shattered teeth and ending with extruded brains, this device demonstrated medieval engineering at its most horrifying. The slow compression could take hours. The Spanish Tickler. Resembling a bear claw, this tool ripped flesh from bones in long strips, particularly used on feet to prevent escape attempts after torture sessions. The Breast Ripper. Designed specifically for women, this clawed instrument tore off breasts in a single motion. Heated versions cauterized wounds to prolong suffering. The Knee Splitter. Spiked vices slowly crushed knee joints beyond repair. Survivors faced lifelong disability if they somehow endured the torture. The Chair of Torture. Hundreds of spikes covered this wooden throne. Weights added to the victim's lap increased penetration depth over hours of torment. The Iron Spider. This clawed implement tore chunks of flesh when pulled away. Heated versions created sizzling wounds while extracting tissue. The Crocodile Shears. Ancient Egypt's bronze shears removed digits with slow precision. Heating them first added burning agony to amputation. The Tongue Terror. Unish inquisitors targeted blasphemers' tongues specifically. The vice-like device crushed before extracting the vital organ. The Spanish Donkey's Little Brother. Portugal's child-sized version showed no mercy to young heretics. The smaller scale made it no less brutal. The Bloody Eagle's variant. Anglo-Saxons started from the front, removing ribs one by one. This prolonged the already gruesome Viking ritual. The Barrel Torture. Pirates sealed victims in vermin-filled barrels. Floating just below the surface prolonged the horror as sea creatures nibbled. The Reverse Hanging. Upside-down suspension preceded the sawing process. This positioning intensified blood flow to the head during execution. The Impalement Stake. Vlad the Impaler's signature punishment used grease stakes. The design prevented immediate death, sometimes for days. Hung. Drawn and quartered. England's traitor punishment included near hanging, castration, and disembowelment. The final division into 4 parts served as warning displays. Burning at the stake. Contrary to popular belief, most victims died from smoke inhalation first. Greenwood created slower, more painful burns. Burial Alive. Rome's Vestal virgins faced suffocation in underground chambers. The psychological torment equaled the physical suffering. Drowning cages. Tide-dependent torture alternated drowning with gasping. The unpredictable timing added psychological horror. Flaying by degrees. The Ottomans stretched skinning into weeks. Small daily sections maximized anticipation and prolonged pain. Crucifixion. Rome's signature punishment caused death by asphyxiation. The angled position required constant effort to. Bloody Eagle's final form. Some Norse accounts describe removing lungs entirely. They fluttering, organs marked the victim's final breaths. Death by elephants. Mughal India trained elephants for executions. Their massive feet could crush limbs with precise, slow pressure. Boiling alive. Medieval England used incremental lowering into boiling liquid. Alternating hot and cold baths prolonged the agony. Pressing. Salem witch trials used gradual weight addition. The slow suffocation forced confessions from victims. Garroting. Spain's collar execution crushed windpipes first. The slow tightening could take minutes of struggling. Flaying by salt. Middle Eastern torturers rubbed salt into skinned flesh. This prevented infection while intensifying pain. Burning Oil Enema. Ancient Assyria cooked victims from inside out. The internal burns caused unimaginable agony. Rat Torture 2.0. Pirates improved the design with sealed metal tubes. Rats had no escape except through flesh. Death by paper cuts. China's vinegar-enhanced version proved small wounds could be just as deadly as large ones. Hanging by ribs. Native American tribes used rib hooks for suspension. Exposure and blood loss created slow deaths. Blood Eagle's psychological twist. Mirrors forced victims to watch their own mutilation. The visual component intensified the horror. Slow slicing. Japan's Edo period refined precision torture. Specific muscle group targeting maximized pain efficiency. Impalement Variations. Different stake designs customized suffering duration. Spirals and barbs created unique pain patterns. Burning Metal Crown. Mesopotamia cooked brains in living skulls. The metal headpiece conducted heat with terrible efficiency. Flaying by sun. Desert tribes used nature as their torture tool. Insects became unwilling executioners. Bone-breaking bench. Germany's wooden presses shattered limbs systematically. The methodical approach increased suffering time. Gouging Spoon. Byzantium's specialized tools removed eyes cleanly. Blind victims often faced further tortures. Nail Chair. Vietnam-era torturers combined seeding with beatings. Each blow drove nails deeper into flesh. Water torture. From dripping to waterboarding, water became an instrument of suffering. The simplicity belied its effectiveness. Modern psychological tortures. Sleep deprivation and sensory manipulation continue torture's evolution. The mental can be as brutal as the physical. This gruesome history reveals humanity's dark capacity for cruelty. While we've moved beyond these barbaric practices, their legacy reminds us how far civilization has come and how fragile that progress remains when fear overrides humanity. Which historical punishment do you find most disturbing? Share your thoughts below, but consider reading them in daylight for peace of mind.